Welcome to the Peace, Harmony, and Joy podcast. I'm Ken Brandeis. I'm here with my co-host, Scott Frank. And we really have an extraordinary podcast episode for you today. We are interviewing Rabbi Yossi Lerman. So Yossi and Scott wrote the book together. Usually I talk about how Scott's the guy who wrote the book on the topic, but less stress, more joy, the peace, harmony, joy approach. Hopefully you can see it in the picture. They wrote it together. So Scott, tell us about Yossi, and I'm sure you've got a lot to say, but just give us the start of it.
I'm so excited to share Yossi with this Peace, Harmony, and Joy community. He is a near and dear friend. We've known each other for over a decade, been through a lot together. And, I just can't say enough good things about him. He grew up in New York. He was, trained rabbi in New York, the Chabad. And he came to, I'd say, Atlanta, Georgia, to the city of Sandy Springs many years ago. Now he's in Gwinnett County running his own Chabad. And he has just really helped a lot of people. He has dedicated his life to helping people, and there are so many people that trust him, that come to him for wisdom, that just know that they can count on him for anything. And he's just a very unique person that way. He's also, as you said, he's the co-author of our book, Less Stress, More Joy, the Peace, Harmony, Joy approach. And it was a real honor and a real pleasure to write with him. Everybody should appreciate he comes at it from scripture and religious teachings. I come at it from self-help books in the School of Hard Knocks. And so it was really interesting when we discovered that we had very similar views on things, but we came to them from different places. What can I say? He's just an amazing person, and he is also vice chair of the Peace, Harmony, and Joy Alliance. So works real closely now as we try to take what's in the book, take it to the people. Yossi, welcome. Just very excited to have you here. And, just very enthusiastic about you sharing your story, because I think you're going to help so many people today. And I think you have just so much in you that the people need to know about. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, my dear Scott. Thank you, Ken. Wow. So I do feel very welcome, and thank you for that very generous welcome and introduction.
I guess what we like to start with is if you could give us your journey. Scott mentioned that you started in New York, as did I, but I'm super curious. I want to hear it from the beginning. Give us your path to get to where you are today before we start talking peace, harmony, and joy.
Great. Well, in general, I feel like that I'm a very lucky human being. And my luck is, of course, the wonderful upbringing I had. I had a wonderful set of parents, mother and father, who are now in the world of the other world, the world of truth, and grew up together with 7 siblings. So there's 7 of us. All in all, I actually didn't leave home till I was about 19, 20. That's the first time I stepped out. I moved out of the house. So I feel like, you feel like you're well baked. You had the love of mother and father, and of course, grandparents, and neighborhood and community. So let me tell a little bit about the community. And actually, this is like the first 20 years of my life, okay? That's probably what was the foundation of who I am. So I grew up in Brooklyn. The neighborhood is called Crown Heights. And Crown Heights is kind of like a ghetto. Primarily, there was Jewish people. This is the community of the Chabad, Lubavitch community. And we are surrounded by another community or others, and we were pretty much locked away, insulated. So for 20 years of my life, I grew up in a very comfortable and secure environment, and a very spiritual environment, and an environment where the emphasis was always about joy and serving other humans, serving mankind, and serving God. Of course, I went to synagogue, and the synagogue I went to, we know the synagogue by its address. So there is no name to the synagogue, it only has an address. So Ken, you should write this down, 770. And once you know that number, you probably know 80% of my passwords, okay? Because we always your password is always something about your past, whatever. So
don't worry, no one's going to listen to this. No,
you can, yeah. So I got
some other words attached to the 770. That's not his entire password.
There you go. My right rabbi in the synagogue is Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson. He knows me. He knows me because I saw him every weekend. He saw me. He knows my parents. He knows my siblings. He knows my class, my teachers. He knows my grades. So I later find out that my rabbi is actually a gigantic world rabbi. Okay. It was not uncommon for me to hear helicopters in the neighborhood or to see snipers on roofs. And we knew, oh, okay, somebody's coming to visit the Rebbe. The Rebbe is the word for grand rabbi or the Rebbe. Somebody of importance, somebody of some great leader of some country or whatever, some politician. And so I grew up literally at the foot of a world leader. And I came out, and this is my teen years, literally, this is my teenage years. Every teenager was looking for someone to take care for them, or every teenager is looking for their hero, okay, the superhero. Every teenager is looking for who am I going to be like?
Right.
Who should I emulate? And so, again, in my very lucky set of cards, I'm born into my parents. And my parents, by the way, my mother's Russian, my father is Israeli. So they met, that's an interesting story. And I am first generation American. To understand a little bit of how I'm in this ghetto, everyone in this Brooklyn neighborhood speaks Yiddish. So ich hab geredet Yiddish my ganze Leben. I grew up speaking Yiddish to my mother, to my father, to my teachers. Ask me how to say pass the ball in Yiddish. So Yiddish was my first language. Huh. And of course, at a stage in my life, I had to convert from thinking Yiddish to thinking English. Maybe you might hear the accent come out sooner or later.
A little bit.
Because I'm totally mixed up. You see, I've got Russian here, Israeli here, Brooklyn, and then Atlanta. So it's all over the place.
Doesn't a Brooklyn accent trump everything else? Isn't that the way it works?
Yes. Yeah, especially, I still have some kids now that live in New York, and I can hear their accent. Yeah, pass the ball, and something like it. We're going to Prospect Park, okay?
Yeah.
So I guess early in my life, and when I started to develop, when I started to become, you might say, a young adult, must have been 16, 17, 18. I would say that the Rebbe taught me two things that you might say is very simple points. First of all, he taught me how to care. And care means not just how to care, but to care. To care means, if I can say it here, to give a damn. That means he taught me someone has to take responsibility of what's going on. The Rebbe was definitely someone who cared for every single human being. And I heard the Rebbe talk week after week about every topic, including, by the way, I remember Yom Kippur War. So I am like Scott. I am 50. We're 57, right, Scott? 57. Yes. Last I checked. Yes. 57. Okay, so I was 7 years old, Yom Kippur War. But I mean, I was there hearing the Rebbe's develop he had theories, he had ideas, he would advise politicians and leaders in Israel. He cared about everyone, he cared about everything. So the Rebbe infused me with a feeling of you care. And it was pretty clear to me that by the time I was 20, that I'm going to do something in my life to help and improve other people's lives. Why? Because I care. The second item he taught me was every little deed, every little act makes a difference. So quickly I could realize, so what? So I'm not the sharpest pencil in the drawer. I am still not the smartest rabbi. I am not. I was not the best in my class. But that's okay. You care and do something. And do something. So the small things care, the small things matter. And the Rebbe actually used a very interesting way of explaining that to us. He always cited this metaphor of a scale. And he said, okay, envision a scale, and the scale has two sides. And right now, the scale is perfectly even and equal. And your next move, and he broke it down, your next thought, your next word, your next action will tilt the scale one way or the other. So what did I know? I know that I was going to join then what we call the Rebbe's army. By now, there's at least 5,000 of us meaning couples, families, that moved out of Brooklyn and settled everywhere in the world. And that's where the name Chabad, you mentioned the name Chabad. It represents the name of our organization. And that's pretty much where I am when I'm 20, okay? So I finished school, I finished rabbinical school, and I was ready. I was ready to what? I was ready to buy my airline tickets and go. Of course, I needed to find a wife, or she needed to find me, and we needed to agree what kind of a life are we going to build together. Understand, Ken, not everyone in the Chabad community moves out. Okay, for example, I'm from a family of 7, so just 2 of us moved out. So I have today 5 siblings still living in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. It's an amazing, for me, it's an amazing trip to go back to Crown Heights. I can visit 5 of my siblings within walking distance. Yeah. Now, of course, today there's grandkids and great grandkids. Scott knows that my calendar is full of weddings. Okay, so we're all committed to each other. Thank God we have a very strong, united family. Okay, again, I'm very lucky, very blessed to that, and we come to each other's weddings all the time. So, and we should continue to come and celebrate. So that's basically where I am. When I'm about 21, I met my wife, Esther. Esther is from Montreal, Canada. And as they say, the rest is history.
Well, you are skipping some things. So let me ask this. So you meet Esther, and today you live in a suburb of Atlanta.
Yes.
So you bought like, how did you end up in Atlanta, and what was your path to doing, and what are exactly you doing today?
Yes, great. So when we married, and I think we stayed 2 years in Crown Heights, which was recommended by the Rebbe, that we settled down first as a newlywed couple, just kind of like let the cement dry a little bit. So we were surrounded in that beautiful cocoon of the family. My mother and father were there. We ate there. We did laundry there, and it was just a beautiful time. Well, then came the time to say, okay, where are we going to go? And the Chabad world, the Chabad has a system of, in a way, helping you find positions. Okay, I went through many different offers, many different opportunities. Some were in America, some were outside of America. I came very close to moving to a place called Albany, New York. And finally, and the Rebbe was always there, not telling me what to do, but kind of like the wind in the sail. You know, when you have a sail, and the sail will move if you have a wind. Now you don't know where the wind is coming from, and that's kind of how the Rebbe influenced you. He wasn't a helicopter kind of mom and dad, and he wasn't a spaceship. You know about the helicopter? Yeah. The helicopters are like the ones like, don't let your child fall.
Right.
The spaceship are on another planet.
Good.
And then there's the parent who's a sailboat. A sailboat is the parent who knows when to blow the right wind. Then it's up to the child to take that energy and do what?
Go with it. Right?
Go with it. Okay. So bottom line is that we had an interview with Rabbi Yossi N-E-W, who is currently he's the director of Chabad in Georgia, in the state of Georgia. So every state and every country really has its own pyramid, its own levels of leadership that you go through. And so I moved to Atlanta in 1990. That's 2 years after my wedding. I was married in 87. In 1990, I came to Atlanta, moved to Sandy Springs, and I was working as the assistant rabbi in the Chabad of Sandy Springs. I was the associate rabbi of the synagogue Bet Tefillah, educational director, and doing a bunch of other things there. So more or less, I got a lot of experience from that community in Sandy Springs, working with Rabbi Yossi Lerman. And then the year, about 11 years later, 2001, and here's really the interesting part of the story is that my anniversary coming to Gwinnett County is 9/11. So, and I say that not just as a date, but I say that as part of my inspiration, my story. I always felt that if 11 people can bring so much pain, suffering, and fear into the world, that's what it took, 11 of those terrorists. I can be one of those people who bring happiness, peace, and joy into the world. Now we can say peace, harmony, and joy to the world. So Ken, yeah, there's a lot of small details, but we moved to Gwinnett County. In other words, I was given the responsibility of everything Jewish in Gwinnett County.
Okay.
So I'm not a synagogue rabbi per se. Chabad is much, much more than a synagogue. We're building neighborhoods. We're building communities. And right now, more than ever, I find myself being a support for people, a emotional, mental support, giving them a shoulder to lean on, giving them hope, optimism, being positive. So that is where we are now in this area. So we moved out to Gwinnett County. In Gwinnett County, this is the area called Peachtree Corners.
Gotcha.
Are you here in Atlanta, Ken?
I just moved about 6 months ago to Phoenix, but I lived just north of Peachtree Corners, so I know it well.
Okay.
But so I do have a question for you, and I think a lot of our listeners probably will be like me and sort of ignorant in this area. But I've always been curious because the difference between Chabad that seems to be growing and making more and more of an impact versus the traditional Hasidic Judaism. Could you explain that?
In many ways, it depends how much time we have here. But
give us the Cliff Note version.
Yeah, the Hasidic movement is concerned about themselves, meaning they figure that the way to raise a family in this environment, the environment can be quite toxic. The environment can be not so kind. So many Hasidic, in fact, many Hasidic communities do not have internet, or they promote using simple phones, not smartphones. You understand why? As much as possible, they want to protect their kind because they feel that that's the only way we can really survive.
Okay.
Somehow, the magic of Chabad is actually to find harmony. That's the key word. Harmony between the spiritual and the physical. Okay? It's not like they are hard to get along together, And in many ways, they look like they're enemies. One is pulling against the other. This is spirituality, and this is materialism, secularism, and worse, everything that goes down that area. The magic of Chabad and the teaching of Chabad. Of course, Chabad is not just a people. Chabad is a philosophy.
Okay.
And the philosophy of Chabad says you cannot just find God in the spirit. You will find, because God is everywhere. And you can't limit God to one thing and not to the other. So if you find the common denominator, which is in everything, which is God, the creator, the sustainer, the giver of life, then everything has in it God. Find that. So here's an example. Here's a family, Yossi and Esther Lerman, move out to Petrie Corners. There's nobody here like me. And I'm going to raise my children in the environment that I'd like to raise them. Now, most people would say, Yossi, you're crazy. Why would you want to go to a place that there is no schools for you? There's no kosher food for you. There's not even a colleague like you in your neighborhood. Your neighbors are not like you. What are you doing? So this is very revolutionary. It is very, very revolutionary. And so, again, that's the magic sauce of Chabad is to embrace everything, everyone, and to find harmony, make harmony. And by definition, harmony means that you have two. You can't have harmony and be alone, right? That's not harmony. When you have orchestra, you have lots of different musical notes and musical instruments, and you make harmony. And that's I think that's the ultimate prayer and goal, is to have peace in the world, which by definition means not that everybody becomes the same, but that we make harmony. We come together and realize that there is perhaps a single goal or a single purpose that we all strive for. Okay,
so now first of all, thanks for that. I've always been curious, but now we've danced around peace, harmony, and joy. So let's get to it.
Can I ask you a question, Ken?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, what do you know about Chabad?
What you just told me.
Okay.
I mean, that's 90% of it. I live near a Chabad house up in Alpharetta. I used to drive by it often, and I knew some people that went, but I know very little.
Right, so, right.
But now I know some.
They say that there'll be a new Chabad center in Gaza within the next month or two.
That would be something.
Okay, of course, that's what that's what they expect. Or when when we'll finally land on Mars, we'll find a Chabad house on Mars. I mean, practically speaking, Chabad is so large now that it literally practically can hug the world.
Wow.
And Scott is very familiar with Chabad all over the world, literally all over the world, wherever they would allow a Jewish family, Jewish couple. And it's working in such a way that anywhere you go, you can find a meal, you can find hospitality, you'll find a friendly face, and if you need to get out of trouble, you'll call your local Chabad.
So I think that's a good segue into peace, harmony, and joy. So, when I met Yossi, honestly, he's one of the most peaceful, harmonious, joyful people I know, and you can tell. I mean, he will do anything for you, And it's not just Jewish people, by the way. He'll do anything for anybody. Him and his family, they just care about people. And so they truly, are working on joy to the world. And at the same time, it was interesting as I got to know him, kind of how he went about his life. And in our book, and what we talk about is, if you want to have joy, it starts with you got to have a foundation of peace. You've got to, and it's, if you want to have joy to the world, it starts with ourselves. Yossi, can you talk a little bit how you set your foundation every day? How do you position yourself to have peace and calm when you're in situations when you're preparing for your day?
Yeah, Scott. So it was really magical for me to meet Scott. We had lunches about every week, and talking about ourselves, and talking about our life, and talking about our challenges. And so this is really how this whole book developed. It was just about conversations. And we realized that there is a few steps here. Okay, the steps. As I mentioned to you earlier, joy was always a big part of our philosophy. Just to give you a little insight into the word joy. Okay, that's such a tough word to describe. What is joy? But let me give you an interesting definition I just came across. And joy says the following: a happy person is an open book. Everything gushes forth. His personality flows free, without restraint or inhibition. So we look at joy as the ability to get anything done. Joy is an opener. You want your mind to work, your heart to work, your body to work to its max. You can't close up. You can't shut down. Joy is the on button, or it's the go button. The opposite of joy is when we're feeling, I'm closing down and shutting down. I'm feeling like stopping. So you can see how joy should be a part of everyone's life. Everyone who wants to move in life and continue moving, including moving through struggles and moving, as we mentioned earlier, inhibitions. So joy is a very big part of that. Also, joy is, in my understanding, joy is not necessarily the results of what you have, of what you gain, of what you've earned. That means that joy is not always at the end. In fact, in my case, joy's got to come in the beginning. Before you start your day, not after you've done your day. That's another feeling. That's a feeling of fulfillment, a feeling of accomplishment, a feeling of contentment, even pleasure. Those are very good feelings, but that's not what I see as joy. Joy has to start, open, move, go. It's, you might call, the spark of life. So we realized that first thing is in order to open, what's keeping you down, what's making you slow down, what's bothering you. Well, basically that's stress. So all the things that bother us, we got to do something about them. And that's the first step, is to bring a sense of peace and calmness. When we're feeling that stress, or worse than stress, is panic, you go into, of course, the fight or flight or panic. So you can't get anything done. Your systems are not working. So the step one is to calm ourselves down. Lots of people, everyone, practices their way, what calms them down, what basically brings them here to the center, what allows them to focus. So you got to remember, stop thinking about the past and don't go away yet in the future. Be present. So once again, there's a lot of things one can do to bring that sense of calmness. Of course, I'm a very religious man. My rock is God, the creator. And so that's what gives me my sense of calmness and stability, and knowing that I'm in good hands. So Scott, I think that was the question. Then of course, step two, or that leads you to harmony. Okay. Once again, harmony is a part of the system of a oiled machine, where all the parts are working in harmony. You realize, of course, we have struggles all the time, struggles with our good side, struggles with our negative side, struggles with our spirit, struggles with our body, meaning there's a lot of tension. And so harmony is really a very important step in getting us to be healthy. And I'm talking about health, of course, on every level, emotional health and physical health, and joy. And joy, of course, is that ability to be open and keep moving and be at our max. And I'm not perfect, and I don't think that there's any human being that is perfect. But I do think that we're all a work in progress. And it's part of that journey that Ken, you were talking about. So we decided that, let's take these ideas and give them, let's share these thoughts. What works? I think Scott has an enormous story to say, which he is telling the world. Scott is a very busy human being, very successful human being. So everybody wants to know, how does he do it? How does he do it? How do successful people do it? Imagine how many books are written on that subject. And so we put this book together, and but Scott was not yet satisfied with that. He wants, let's get this to the world, and then of course we have the Peace, Harmony, and Joy Alliance.
So Yossi, the process of writing a book, I've never written a book, but I just can imagine it's difficult, time consuming, et cetera. But now you've got two people trying to write a book together, probably twice as hard, I would think. So what was your process? How did it work? How did the work actually get done? I understand about the lunches, but at some point you've got to spend time putting words to paper, right?
And that is a great, insightful point that you're making. Very insightful. I mean, anytime you have two people working on something, how does it get done?
Right.
And Scott and I are coming from different backgrounds. So I think that I give each other the credit that we were humble, and we were respectful to each other, and that was really the magic, that we put it all together. And so it was just working on the book was an example of peace, harmony, and joy.
So one last question for Yossi. So we talked about peace, harmony, and joy within, and I like how he said it's the joy's the beginning. I think some people think peace, harmony, joy, like that's the end, but I think the whole goal is to get you into these joyful places in your day, in your mind, so that you can spark greatness in yourself. And so I appreciate Yossi just confirming that it's joy's not actually the goal. We're trying to have you have as much joy so you can actually have these amazing experiences. Once you get it in yourself, we talk about how now you can share it with others. If you really want to change the world, you've got to have it in yourself. As you talk a little bit of how you share peace, harmony, and joy with others, because people like to be around Yossi. Yossi has a way of sparking joy in others. Share a little bit of your insights on how you do that, Yossi.
Somehow, I think that you and I are talking about our next book, and that's the book on ego, if we're allowed to share. But I think that has to be under check, and so I know that the better days of my life. Let me just put it this way: the better days of my life, the happier days of my life, is the days that I think less of myself. The more I think of myself, the more it just becomes more complicated. So I turn the attention, you're focusing, you turn your eyes from the inside to the outside. And I am very proud of the environment, Scott, that we created at our organization, at Chabad. What does that mean, the environment? I always want to make sure that it is a safe environment. And I don't mean safe from guns. I mean safe that I can come out of my shell. I can let my guard down. I can let my hair down and be myself. It's very important to me in my environment that we're creating. Lots of people go to synagogues and they walk away because they feel there's a sense of competition, there's a sense of higher, lower, who got this, who got that. As much as possible in creating and preserving this environment, Scott. So I'm right now, I can only talk about the community, that the world that sort of I created around us here. I had a very interesting experience. I have another few minutes I'll talk to you about yesterday. Yesterday I decided I'm gonna share the light. Okay, I'm gonna go. So I took a few things and I went to the Mall of Georgia. I had no agenda. I was just going to go to the Mall of Georgia and smile at people and say hello to people, or shalom. And I had some candles. I was going to hand out candles to encourage people to light candles. We love candles. We like light candles, especially Friday night, okay, as we enter to our day of Sabbath. So I just walked the whole entire 2 floors of Mall in Georgia, round and round. I stopped people. I spoke to one manager and I said that I was sent here to check up on the Jewish people to see how they're doing. I just needed an excuse that, what do you want? So I stopped a lot of people. I would just say to them one word, shalom. And I said, can we pray together for peace in the world? Yeah, so it definitely means in many ways getting out of your comfort, coming out of your box and coming out of your office and stepping out.
Well, I think, it's an interesting story. And I think that story, and really pretty much everything you've said that has led to writing this book and all the great things that you do for the community, comes back to your days back in Crown Heights and what you learned the two things that your rabbi said was, one is to care.
Yeah.
And number two is that every little act makes a difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
Big, little makes, it's everything matters. And I really liked it.
I could have said very easily, I could have said, let somebody else do it. Let somebody else do it. Who am I? What am I going to take on a position? Let somebody else do it. But there's something interesting that what I've heard from listening to many of the stories of Israel and Israel's wars. So here's what a lot of Israeli soldiers have said, and they use one expression in Hebrew. And the Hebrew word is, when they were asked, how did you do it? How did you win the war? How did you imagine 10 tanks battling 150 tanks? Or just a group of guys with guns shooting against tanks. It was impossible to do this. And they used the words ein bereira, which translates just very simply, we had no choice. And to me, that's also a mindset that I can relate to. Ein bereira means the buck stops here.
Yeah.
Okay, if I don't get this done, it's not going to get done. So you may be tired, but you're still in the office. Why? Because you're the owner. And if you don't get that done, nobody will get it done. You got to close the door, close the lights, even wash the toilets, because you are the owner. And that's something that the Rebbe gave me. He gave me ownership of the world. And everybody has their ownership. Everybody owns their world because everybody is unique. Everybody is different. And so in a sense, mental sense, we are all alone in the world. There's really nobody else in the world. That means if you don't get it done, it's not going to get done. Because your contribution is one of a kind. There will never be another Ken. There never was another Ken, or Yossi, or Scott. So really, in a way, we got to show up. So that's another mental picture that the Rebbe painted in my mind. And of course, now that I am a pioneer, starting things from scratch, from zero, growing and growing and growing. I wish the same for all my children. I wish the same. I want them to have the same experience that I had. That pioneering spirit of nobody's gonna get it done except I got to do it.
Well, Yossi, that's certainly powerful words, and I think we're going to make those the last words. As Scott said, we can have future conversations that can go in a lot of different directions. But so for the Peace, Harmony, and Joy podcast, please follow us, like us, give us a review, but most importantly, join us on our joyful journey to bring peace, harmony, and joy to the world.